So we're going to get rolling. Attendance at the beginning of the meeting is full. And in addition to committee members, we also have Councillor Biermansky and Councillor Mackay in attendance. Thank you. I'll call the meeting to order. Adoption of the agenda. Any concerns with the agenda? No. Mayor Herron, can you make a motion to adopt the agenda?
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Great.
Oh, Ken's not on this committee. Can't do it.
No, I just adopted.
All right. You guys have that? So moved? Okay. All those in favor? That's carried. Next up is the approval of the minutes. So there's minutes from February 14th. I'm pretty sure Wes just made that motion.
Absolutely. You heard me.
So you're okay with those as presented?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor? That's carried. Thank you. All right, and now we've got the 10-year Municipal RMR plan and budget with Ms. Finley.
Thank you. And I'm just going to have a quick presentation on both the 10-year municipal and utility, and then we'll open it up for questions. So good afternoon. I'm here today to present committee members with a preliminary view of the 10-year municipal and utility capital repair, maintain, and replace, or RMR, plans for future council consideration of approval of the 2023 capital projects, which is scheduled for council deliberation on June 7th. The 10-year RMR plans identify capital projects and budget requirements necessary to maintain the city's existing infrastructure, which is required to maintain current service levels and are managed through life cycle plans. For 2023, the municipal RMR budget includes 26 projects equating to 24.1 million, of which 44% represents roads and other engineering structures, 29% is for mobile and other equipment, and 21% for civic facilities. The 223 variance of 258,000 from last year's 223 plan is due to a detailed review of life cycle replacement plans, refined cost estimates, and staff resources and capacity. The 223 utility RMR budget includes 8 projects equating to 41.7 million. The 10-year utility capital plan impacts the supplementary capital fee portion of the utility rates. The plan has increased over the 22 to 23 utility plan, and this will be incorporated into the utility rate model and reflected in the proposed budget rates that will be brought to council as part of the 223 proposed budget. The increase is due to updated cost estimates from the most recent utility master plans, as well as new projects identified as additional priorities. The plans are being brought forward at this time as the city is committed to funding existing infrastructure prior to consideration of new capital growth. And while approval occurs in June, spending will not be permitted until 2023. Early approval provides administration with the opportunity to begin preparation of RFP bids and review of available grant funding. If desired, council members may submit postponed motions for any amendments to the plan by May 19th. Administration will prepare backgrounders on these motions, and the 10-year plans, along with all postponed motions, will be presented to council at the June 7th meeting. So this concludes my presentation, and we do have staff available for any questions you might have.
Thank you. So looking in the room, who would like to start us off? Councillor Killick, you have a question? No?
Not really, because we're just accepting the report for information. The ask is to have comments back once we have a chance to read the details. Got a timeline for that by May, and we'll have that'll give administration time to prepare the backgrounders. So we'll have more information at that time. Right now, I have reviewed the high level list, and I really don't have any comments until such time as we see the detail. And then we'll be able to do final approval on June 7th. So.
Sorry, Councillor Kulik, just to confirm, you did get the all the charters along with.
Yep, it's in the pack.
540 pages of
150.
All right.
Or something.
Anything else? I'm not seeing takers around the floor. Mayor Herron,
I
go
guess
ahead.
more for Mike's sake is, did you say you wanted more details? Like,
No, I'll be looking at the charters as listed, and then
you're gonna read them all?
I have read all of them,
I've read them
actually.
in the past, so generally RMR comes to us and it's required. Actually, I'll put the motion forward and I can speak.
I do have one question though. The Rec 072 Lions Park charter. I'm just curious to know if there's any opportunity to, and I mean, I know this is mixing capital growth and RMR, but to consider that alongside the development of Millennium Park. If we are developing Millennium Park this term, for example, I suspect that would change potentially the needs at Lions Park. So if Danielle looks like she's ready to comment on that.
Yeah, through the chair, Councillor Jolly, we are actually, the whole point of the project is to get a bit of an assessment of Lions Park right now. And the intent would be to align the future planning in alignment with the Millennium Park development, but it is really to get a handle on what work we would need to do at that park site, just because of the high usage on the site and some of the issues we've had in the past. If you want more specific details, I do have Craig Cameron on the line and he can speak specifically to the project, but we would look to align kind of the design and overlap that with the Millennium Park project as well. It's just really to get the assessment and a future plan moving forward.
So I guess related to that, kind of, are we assuming that Millennium Park is going to go forward with the existing kind of detailed or the designs that were made? I don't even know how many years before I was elected.
Yeah, we're continuing, administration is continuing to work on that project. We are doing some information up to council and we'll be having further conversations on that project with council in the coming months. But it will be going, right now we're continuing it to have it go forward in its current format, but we'll be having some more conversations with council based on previous conversations around that park site as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Mackay.
Just a general question. When we look at like things like traffic signal maintenance and we project out to 2032, I mean, obviously technology and other kind of new developments, how do you guys project that far out where you just put a number? Like how does that work?
Yeah, thank you, Councilor Mackay, through you, Madam Chair. So for one thing, in terms of the new technologies, we know the kind of standalone or the trends that exist today in regards to our maintenance requirements, and those haven't really incorporated a good testing or experiences yet with some of the new technology. So in terms of the ITS work, we really are just kind of putting in placeholders there and expectations. I would hate to say that, there's a guarantee in any of that, but as we expand on some of the equipment, we, put together a certain percentage of maintenance required, and then we use life expectancy out of the equipment. There's what we're told by manufacturers and whatnot, and that's what we're kind of applying in today's estimates. But then there's the life experience and what we see in our local conditions and whatnot, and that's what will be updated as we advance and get further into the processes and the years with our charters. Those numbers will be better refined.
No, I was just wondering, I know like 20, for example, 2027, 2028, 2029, there must be just placeholders because they're 5/16, 3 days, or 3 days, pardon me, 3 years. So I was just kind of curious as to how do we arrive at those numbers is all kind of.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So we kind of take into account what our inventory is when they're kind of, we're looking at some, like as an example, our ITS, we've captured adaptive controllers and whatnot along 16 out of our 65 intersections kind of thing. So we put a life expectancy to it, and then anywhere from our backup battery powers and whatnot, and kind of apply that to as we have them integrated into our system. So we kind of use our inventory where the life expectancy is, and then apply a general number. And then, again, to your point, those costs may be, vary in future conditions and whatnot. So we're using today's costs associated with maintaining them. And the contingency would reflect some kind of account for anticipated variance. But as we go forward, those numbers will again be far better refined as we look at our whole network.
So when we look at the road transportation network in its entirety, so projecting out to 2032, we know our community is going to grow out to 100,000. We're going to get all new roads. We're going to get new street lights. We're going to get new traffic signal lights. How do you extrapolate? I know we're not concerned about the new, but eventually we're gonna have to maintain them and replace them. So how do you anticipate, or how do you go forward in anticipating growth? Because that just adds to our inventory, right? Not only are we looking at old material, but we're also looking at potentially types of traffic signals and lights that we don't even know are out on the market yet. So you just kind of just have to, sometimes you might just have to extrapolate a lot, eh?
Yeah, there is, and we use our, like, as an example to know what may be coming down the pipe for inventory in the future, our traffic impact assessments with growth. And so, and this is where, again, you know, we'll acknowledge and say by, you know, 2030, we anticipate a certain percentage. I'll use like Jensen Lakes as an example. Fowler Way may be coming on, or whatever course, the new roadways, and we'll anticipate some new intersections. Now, with that as well, we, you know, hope that we can use internal services to offset some of those increased costs too, that as we can train our internal resources to better maintain and manage these, you know, we obviously won't be building the equipment, but we can better maintain it and whatnot internal as well, where in the past we may be seeing more contracted services. You know, we have that offset as well.
No, thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, Councilor Broadhead.
Thanks, Madam Chair. In a sense, a similar question. Public Works 001, the plan supports the replacement of over 300 vehicles and pieces of equipment valued at over $30 million. So as we go forward, I mean, on council, we already have our mayor with a full electric vehicle. How do you plan for the introduction of that kind of technology? And is it anticipated in the RMR plan?
I can take that through the chair, Councillor Broadhead. So our RMR plan is for replacement of existing fleet. As growth comes on, we accommodate inside of growth additional resources required with the growth charters. But really, at the end of the day, those are the costs for repair, maintain, replace of our existing fleet.
So my question though is like, you won't replace a 2000 truck with another 2000 truck. It'll be a 2025 truck. It might be compressed natural gas or electric or whatever.
Yeah, so we don't forecast for replacement of other items. So if it's a 2020 truck and replace it in 2025, it'd be a 25 truck that meets the requirements of the operations at that time.
You don't anticipate moving from sort of diesel to electric anytime soon on any of our vehicles?
Well, we could. The problem with that though, the swings in costs are extensive, right? So unless we had a full direction, that's the way we're going to go. For us to forecast that out,
PM.
Yeah,
it's very difficult. You know, for an electric bus, you're looking at, you know, another, you know, $300,000-$400,000 worth of equipment. If we take all of our buses and say we're going to do all electric by a certain time, that's definitely doable. But that would have a real swing one year over the next on RMR.
yeah. Well, I'm just waiting for that because Quebec has already said thou shalt not buy a diesel bus. So I suspect Alberta will be the last to make such a statement.
The only thing I'll say to that, Councillor Broadhead, through the chair, is that the other thing we have to realize too, for us to forecast the costs out 4 years for new technology, the thing we have to keep in mind too is the new technology will come down as it becomes the norm. So the cost that we're carrying, if there is no diesel vehicles at that time, the expectation is we're not going to be paying, you know, double for that technology that we're using at the time. So it becomes a very slippery slope when you start making a lot of assumptions of what the market's going to look like, what you're going to do. So that's typically why we try to forecast to what we know, which is the costs, and then we forecast out based on timelines of increased inflation, et cetera, et cetera.
Fair enough. Thanks for the response. I know that you always watch what's going on in the environment that you work within. So I guess the question is that if there's a governmental directive that says thou shalt do X, you'll come to council and say, in order to do that, we need so much money, right?
Exactly. And on top of that too, if typically when the government does that, there's opportunities for grants, et cetera. No different than when we replaced our previous buses with the electric versions. That was through a grant process that paid for a significant portion for the municipalities. So we'd be chasing all the exact same items to alleviate the cost to our residents.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Could I just add a comment?
Sure.
Yeah, so like our current policy around RMR and sort of our past practice for a long time is sort of that concept of replacing like with like, right? So that's generally what our RMR plans are based on. And you were mentioning about, you know, if the government had changed and said thou shalt not have diesel, council could provide that direction as well. And I know Mr. Scoble talked lots about, certainly on the utility side, you know, I think he kind of called it RMR plus, right? Like when we're replacing potentially some of the utility pieces, do we need to deal with climate change adaptations, you know, for the 1 in 100 year or the 1 in 50 year storms and stuff? And so it's a conversation council might want to be starting to have, but we might need to start planning for that stuff.
Okay.
Because yeah, our RMR contributions from our tax base really are based on a like for like, based on the information the best information that we have today, like Jay had said.
Fair enough. I'm not sure I want to add too much to our mark.
Thank you. Councillor Birmanski.
I won't take up too much time. I have another question for Jay. How far ahead are you ordering vehicles? And I know the electric vehicles, like the electric buses, are double the price of the diesel vehicles, and the railways are already testing out the hydrogen. So say you're ordering electric, would it be a 2-year off arrival, a 3-year, or is it even that soon at this point in time?
Through the chair. So it varies, I guess, based on availability of what's out there, right? So the only vehicles we have in our fleet right now is the electric buses that are either, you know, hydrogen or electric or a lot of the new energy sources that we're moving towards. So it's typically available in the market. So electric is available in the market. So if we were purchasing that, we don't typically buy until we get the funding. So we would get the funding this year. We can't expend it till 2023. If we were purchasing an electric bus, we would put our tender out. And then it would be based on availability. Typically, we kind of generate when we want the equipment. And so only those proponents that have that equipment available would be tendering to us if we put it for that year, right? So it's tough for us to say if hydrogen's coming down the market in 4 years that we're going to put it in RMR now to pay for something 4 years out. We would market for, if we were moving that direction, we would put the RMR in for hydrogen to replace one of our buses, and we would market that in the tender package for the following year.
Okay, and then one other last question. If you're purchasing buses for the city of St. Albert, then we go to a regional transit. Why are we paying for the buses that would go into another region?
So through the chair, so that's a great question. And it's one I can't really answer until we actually have the firm business plan from the regional system. So for example, depends on how they deem what we're going to do for asset transfer, et cetera. And so once the business practice is in place, they'll have those contracts set up with the municipalities on how they're going to manage their business. And it may be based on St. Albert's purchasing power, Edmonton's purchasing power. They may ask them to do it, et cetera, but without seeing, you know, what their plan looks to be, as far as them owning our assets or us leasing the assets back, et cetera, et cetera. There's so many different variables that could happen in a business plan. So we're sort of waiting as they develop that over the next 6 months.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor McKay has another question.
Yeah, and I thank you very much, Chair. So why is the Alaria electric field artificial turf replacement identified as new? When if you look at the
2019.
yeah, when you look at the project charter, I mean, it clearly identifies that when the field was installed in 2008, it had a limited warranty. So why is it new? Is it just something that flew under the radar or what?
Yeah, I was just going to say I can start and then Jay can fix it. The reason that it's new is that it was not shown on the plan last year. So again, as we're kind of developing some of our asset replacements and things like that, items will show up that may not quite have been on the radar. So that's why it's showing as new. Not sure if Jay has any more to add to that one.
Through the chair, yeah. The only thing I can say about that is when we do RMR, there's always going to be, so they're based on, you base your RMR on life cycle typically when it comes to equipment and assets such like that. And so when you're doing that, you're forecasting out based on a life cycle from the manufacturer. Through maintenance programs, occasionally you can extend the life cycle out and push it. So we've done quite a bit of maintenance on that field over the last 5 years that allowed us to push that out, which is why it didn't come now. It was, I believe, just off the top of my head, I think it was a 10-year life cycle from the original manufacturer, which was
8 to 10. That's
Yeah,
pretty
so-
good. That's close enough.
Yeah, so they were 2017 to 19, I think was the forecast, but based on some of the maintenance we did on site, we were able to push that out a couple of years.
So like, how does them like that just get replaced? Like, I mean, that's $1 million cost. So, I mean, hope, again, going back to the technology question, hopefully it lasts a little longer. We've got a whole bunch of different material. I mean, that's a big hit, $1 million. Maybe that's not a question. That's not a question. I'm just saying, I mean, that's a big, when did they put that in? I know that's not an RMR question. That was more of a curiosity.
2008.
Yeah, they put it in 2008, but then how long does it take you to, because I mean, you have to put it in off season, like when do you put it in, the beginning of the season?
Through the chair, I guess I can speak that a little bit. So we'd be working with Rec and Parks as far as the scheduling, just to alleviate any sort of issues with scheduling of what's happening there. So it's going to be put in during off season when it's not being utilized.
All right, thanks, Chair.
All right, I'm not seeing any more hands. Oh, okay, we're gonna do Mayor Herron and then, or do you have something? No, we're good. Councilor Broadhead.
Are we doing utility RMR too?
I believe so, yep.
Later, so
Later.
is it
Wait your
different
turn.
agenda item?
It is, but she said she,
I did the presentation.
Oh, okay.
yes, we can go there.
Last questions now, okay.
All right, so just the sediment control and erosion control program that was supposed to be done in 2021 is extended. So my understanding is that we put in grit interceptors to prevent grit from entering into the river, and but once grit's in the river, it's there forever. That's my understanding, right? Can't take it out.
It becomes a sandbar and it's a beach.
Exactly.
What do they call it? The beach or
Accidental beach.
accidental beach?
I guess. Sorry, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say, so 2021, as I read the project charter, there's ongoing stuff now. And then when a couple of meetings ago, I asked, and Donnie said, we're working on a grid interceptor right now. So can you just give me an update on how that's all playing out and whether this will be a sort of an ongoing thing, or how can we manage this on a go forward basis?
All right, well, I guess through the chair, I guess to start with, it's a multi-year project. We've got, I think, 48 outfalls in total that go to the river, and the plan wasn't to do them all at once. It was to hit them as priorities. So we started with some of the bigger ones.
I've worked on it since I've been elected. Sorry.
And we've been working through, we still have a number of outfalls to do. So, and I guess to respond to the other half, once the sediment is in the river, for the most part, we do not remove it. It becomes very difficult to deal with environment. Back in the day, we used to dredge the Sturgeon River, and it was an easier process. Today, it's a much more difficult process to touch anything once it's in the river. So.
Yeah. I just remember when the 10-year program around grid interceptors was presented. At least my understanding at the time was that at the end of the 10 years, we'd be done with grid interceptors, but apparently not.
That's through the chair. That's correct. There's still a number of outfalls to do. Yeah,
Okay.
I don't have the exact numbers in front. Yes, there are still a number to do.
Okay.
Great. Anyone else? No?
Right.
Okay, I believe Mayor Herron is prepared to make
I can make.
both of those motions. I don't know if you can put them up on the screen just so we can see.
Yeah.
Look at that.
This is a depressing one. No, I got it. Okay. So this is the municipal RMR. So number one, the 10-year municipal RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the report entitled 10-year municipal RMR capital plan be received as information. Number 2, that council members submit any motions for proposed amendments to the 10-year municipal RMR capital plan to administration by May 19, 2022. And third, that administration prepare backgrounders for motions for proposed changes to the 10-year municipal RMR capital plan for presentation to council at June 7th, 2022 meeting for consideration of approval. And the utility ones are very similar.
Hang on. Good job, Riley.
She's done that before.
Okay, and the 10-year utility RMR capital plan provided as an attachment to the report. I should have just put utility in.
Almost there.
That's okay. To the report entitled 10-year utility RMR capital plan be received as information. That council members submit their motions for proposed amendments by May 19th, and that administration prepare backgrounds for council on June 7th. I kind of abbreviated that.
All right.
If you're good at that.
That's great.
Yeah.
I think we're ready to vote. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing I was going to say is we made this change quite a number of years ago that we would do this in June, July-ish. So the tenders could start getting done, because the kind of work that we're looking at today is disheartening. It is to see the big numbers. And to hear something like Larry Electric Field, which is just an example of probably some of the hidden assets that are going to be slowly added, which is just going to make us more and more depressed whenever we see this. But everything in here generally is 100% required. And that was a problem we had years ago, is we would have things above and below the line of RMR type stuff. And that's when a city falls into trouble, is when you're not taking care of the basic infrastructure. So that's all I wanted to actually.
That's great. So I'll call for the vote. Right, that's carried. That went way quicker than I was expecting.
It generally does.
I could have asked more questions.
All right, next up, we've got Northeast Servicing Detailed Design.
More good news.
With Donnie George. This is exciting.
Thank you. I have a PowerPoint slide that I will start sharing and presenting.
Big pump.
Is it coming through, just to confirm?
Yep, looks good.
Perfect. Right. Good afternoon, committee chair and members. My name is Donnie George, Director of Engineering. I'm here to present a project charter, which is an attachment 1 in your package that will bring sanitary stormwater services to the northeast part of the city, including lands within the newly annexed area in the northeast part of the city, and to request funding for phase 1, which is the detailed design of the project. You also have staff online from Utilities and Finance to answer any questions that committee members may have on this project. Through this presentation, we'll provide some background to Northeast servicing requirements, the proposed alignment and estimated cost, the proposed phasing of the project in terms of funding, implementation timelines, and the final recommendation. So as a background, development in the northeast part of the city, mainly Erin Ridge North and Jensen Lakes, has been enabled utilizing oversized capacity built previously into the city's existing water, sanitary, and stormwater systems through the Oakmont and Erin Ridge neighborhoods. This oversized capacity has been utilized beyond what was originally intended. The 2013 Utility Master Plan anticipated that the offsite levy, sanitary, and storm trunk mains identified above would be needed by 2022. Modeling work performed as part of the 2021 Sewer Master Plan has confirmed that the existing storm and sanitary gravity mains are already operating beyond their recommended capacity with surcharging, which means fully submerged gravity mains during high rainfall events. This modeling output and capacity concern is being verified in the field by our city's operating staff at present. I just want to make it very clear that our model may be a bit skewed as it takes the average across the city, and given the lower consumption of water that the city has seen and less inflow and infiltration in the newer installed sanitary infrastructure, it is a worthwhile effort to confirm the actual flows in the field to validate or recalibrate the model output. With each additional development that is added to infrastructure that is operating beyond its capacity, there is an increasing risk that homes in Erin Ridge, Oakmont may experience basement flooding. Without the significant investment into new capital infrastructure to support growth, it is expected that a moratorium will need to be placed on further development in the Northeast, either proactively or following an observed impact on existing customers from a high rainfall event. So therefore, to mitigate this capacity constraints and to define a permanent solution, city and two benefiting developers entered into a memorandum of understanding and helped advance detailed design to about 60%, which identified the alignment that is shown on the map, also in your attachment 2 in the package. The developers front-ended the cost to date on the design portion, which the city now desires to take on and complete to be compliant with the public procurement process, while also navigating to procure funds to complete construction. As the project has grown in scope and complexity in design, that it is evident now that the cost of the required infrastructure for all 3 offsite levy projects is such that no single developer can afford to front-end the construction cost. So the number 1 shown on the map there is the offsite levy project Sanitary Project 2, Gravity Trunk and Siphon, which was previously a lift station and a Project 3 force main. And number 2 is the Storm Project 5, Trunk Sewer and Outfall. And number 3, which is a portion of Water Project 10, Northeast Reservoir Fill Line, are required to enable development to continue in the northeast part of the city and the newly approved annex lands in the northeast part of the city. So just to be clear, by constructing these projects does not contribute to servicing capacity in any other part of the city, for example, lands west of Ray Gibbon Drive or any other area. To note, the addition of Water Project 10, even though this is not anticipated to be needed until at least year 2032, it has been recommended for inclusion because significant cost savings are anticipated due to the shared alignment with the other 2 projects. So instead of having to come back again and disrupt the ground in less than 7-10 years, that's what was included. Utilities anticipate to use this water asset as a distribution line before using it for its ultimate purpose to be a fill line to the future North Reservoir. Developers have been installing some of the required offsite levy infrastructure that could be staged and constructed incrementally at the same time as neighborhood development occurred. And they have been contributing offsite levy payment towards this eventual construction of this large-scale infrastructure. If the project does not proceed, there will be a limited servicing capacity and subsequent limited opportunity for development to proceed, which will mean then there will be limited opportunities to collect the accompanying offsite levies. Collected offsite levies will be used ultimately to pay for these projects. The current total estimated design and construction cost for these projects, based on the 60% design completed, is about $31.5 million. It is also to be noted that if the city chooses to debt fund these projects, it will reduce the city's debt capacity by the same amount to fund any other future city front-ended capital projects such as Lakeview Business District servicing or community amenity sites, etc. The project charter is divided into 2 phases. Phase 1 includes completing the detailed design and securing some construction administration services for the construction phase of the project. Phase 1 is estimated to cost about $2 million. This should take care of any risk associated to detailed design phase, proceeding with the regulatory application process, advancing tender services, which could help transition better into phase 2, which is anticipated to in Q3, Q4 of 2022, pending all approvals in place. There are enough funds in the city's offsite levy reimbursement account to advance the design phase for these 3 projects immediately, and there's no tax impact expected. As previously mentioned, the current total design construction cost of these projects is based on the 60% design is about $31.5 million. This $31.5 million includes the $2 million which will be incurred in phase 1. It is anticipated that the city may require a debenture to fund the construction phase of this project. The offsite levy water reserve has funds available to pay for this water project. While the cost from these projects will be eligible for reimbursement back to the city through offsite levy reimbursement, recoveries could take significant time, for example, decades. It is currently anticipated that the cost for debt servicing and repayment will be through the city's offset levy reimbursement funds. Administration will also be looking for specialized grant opportunities to help offset some of the project costs, which could result in a smaller debenture requirement. So once phase 1 design is complete, administration will update the project charter to reflect new construction estimates based on a finalized design and the realized cost from phase 1. At a future council meeting, council will be required to approve any updates to the project charter proceeding with phase 2 and any potential borrowing bylaws. Anticipated construction timelines are approximately tendering and construction award likely to occur Q4 of 2022 or Q1 of 2023, pending all regulatory approvals and another year in construction with an expected end date in Q2 of 2024. So based on the background and information provided as part of AR 22-185, it is recommended that Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee recommends to Council that Capital Project Charter WASWT 021 Northeast Servicing Projects to be added to the 10-year Municipal Growth Plan in 2023 for future funding considerations, and that $2 million be funded from the offset levy reimbursement funds in 2022 to advance the design component of the project described as phase 1 in the attached project charter. Thank you. That's the end of presentation, and happy to take any questions.
Thank you. All right, we'll start with Councilor Mackay, then Councilor Kelly.
I don't have any,
Okay,
not right now anyway.
sorry, I said Councilor Broadhead is what I meant.
Oh, okay. Well, it doesn't matter to me.
Mike understood.
Thank you. And so just a couple of questions. You said in your presentation that this would not, this project would not help development in any other part of the city. Yet we got some support from another developer that said this would help to the west of St. Albert Trail. Can you just talk about that? So the Jensen Lakes area, this would help in their development as well. Is that correct?
Through the chair to Councillor Broadhead, yes, that's correct. Parts of Melcor's land towards the north and the northeast where the Erin Ridge North ASP is proceeding, that's mostly where this infrastructure would benefit from.
Okay, so fair enough. Then I can understand their interest. Secondly, so the siphon and versus the lift station, gravity versus force main, is this new technology that's come available and is it cheaper, or why the change?
Through the chair to Councillor Broadhead, Regan may have more details to it, but definitely eliminating the lift station has realized at least $2 million in savings in the capital investment, not to mention the savings in the operating and maintenance of having a lift station versus a force main. It is not new technology. People have used it in many circumstances before. The technology is functionable only in a certain circumstances and certain geotechnical conditions. So maybe Regan can expand a little bit on that.
It is more challenging to design, and it is more uncommon. Lift station is a much safer design. It's sort of foolproof, if you will. We have 2 large siphons within our existing collection system, so it's a design that we're comfortable with. Not all municipalities are comfortable with the siphon type infrastructure, but you typically see it where you're doing a river crossing with a large diameter trunk main. So this type of application is what it lends itself to, and we envision long-term operational cost savings. So generally, you'll spend a little more up front, and you'll have long-term operational cost savings on the electricity side, obviously, as well as pump maintenance. In this case, we actually see a $2 million reduction in the capital costs. So savings all around. Savings all around.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Councillor Kelly.
So we're pumping water out or we're sucking water out instead of pumping it out.
Yes. Well, we actually, the previous design actually had a lift station towards the top of the hill, and we were pumping it down the hill and across the river. So yeah. Generally you're pumping uphill, and then we were in fact pumping downhill with the previous design.
Okay, great. The other question I had was, could you explain the portion of the water project? It seemed a little bit different. We're doing it all together to save money, which I get. We're digging one big trench and doing the whole thing. But then we're only doing a portion of the water fill line.
I'll through the chair to Councillor Killick, I'll respond to that one, Donnie. This is actually the fill line for the North Reservoir, which we have not built yet. And we're not expecting that to be needed also until 2032. The reason that we're just doing the first leg or the first phase is because we actually don't have an alignment secured for the remainder. We have road right of way for this portion. And then obviously the synergies with the existing project. We don't have any synergies with other projects as we move to the north yet. So it makes sense to split the project up into two phases. And we actually haven't secured a site yet for the North Reservoir. So we also want to figure out exactly where that North Reservoir is going to be before we build the supply line to it as well. So
Okay.
we don't have a fixed alignment. This portion is not subject to change, but the rest of the alignment is, depending on where that reservoir is going to be located. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
We're gonna have a slightly used 750 horsepower pump. Want to buy that.
Through the chair to Councillor McKay, maybe we can talk offline. But
on that note, could we get the motion online? And Councillor Killick, do you want to make that one?
Yep. That the Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee recommend to Council that the capital project wastewater 021 Northeast servicing projects be added to the 10-year municipal growth plan in 2023 for future funding consideration, and that funding in the amount of $2 million be approved from the offsite levy recovery funds in 2022 to advance the design component of the project described as phase 1 in the attached project charter.
All right, I'll accept that. Do you want to make any comments? You ready to go?
Appreciate that we're doing everything we can to minimize costs with the new siphon technology, especially not only capital costs, but ongoing maintenance costs, and that we're doing them all three together, again, as a way to save money. So look forward to hopefully things coming in close to the proposed budget.
All right, call for the vote. All right, that carries. Thank you. Good work. Wow. Okay, we are on to, thank you so much, Donnie. We're on to Planning and Development's 2021 annual report with Adrian.
Thank you. So I don't have any formal presentation, as I have given a lot of this presentation in the Planning and Development 101. I can give just a high overview if you want of some of the significant statistics or achievements over the past year, if you'd like, but otherwise I'm just here to answer questions.
I thought the report was great. I think all of us read it. So
I have one.
Councillor McKay does have a question though.
Yeah, you know what, if you're not going to do a presentation, I was curious, with obviously with the pandemic and limitations in relation to some of your programming, you noted right away in the first paragraph that you didn't hire summer students in 2021. Are there plans to hire summer students this year going forward?
Probably not this year, just because of timing. When you hire summer students, it's actually done probably in March or something like that. Next year, once we've got our feet underneath us a little bit more, I would expect that we would get back to that. I think it's important for career development and helping expose students to kind of some knowledge-based on the ground training, but not this year, no.
Yeah, no, that's exactly why I kind of asked the question, because of the important synergies, and plus also you never know, they may come back as employees. So it's always a great program, STEP program.
That's how I got my start. Yeah.
That's how you got your start?
Yes.
Yeah. Good. Great. That's the way most people do it. 31 full-time employees, is that the authorized strength, or should we is that kind of historically where we've been at?
We've slowly added a few pieces just based on demand. We added an electrical inspector a few years ago. We added a planner 2 position here in the last year. We're still, I would say, pretty lean relatively and comparatively compared to a number of our neighboring municipalities. But we're still able to get the job done for the most part. We have been keeping an eye on some of our statistics. And what we've been trying to do is hopefully create some or utilize technology a little bit more so that we can maybe improve processes so that we don't need to have so much manual process. But it is something that we've been paying attention to as to whether or how close we are to actually needing additional bodies to fill the roles. And it's close-ish, but not urgent at this point from what we've seen.
The 3 contract positions, were they just brought into for specific, like the annexation, or were they something else?
Yeah, we had a municipal development plan, annexation, and then a mat leave backfill. So between those different roles, we've got 3 people right now.
I mean, is that an alternative? If you get busier, can you bring in more contracts? Or do you have the capacity to do that?
I think it's something that we would absolutely consider. Yeah, it's absolutely something that we would consider. It's just, like I said, I don't think we're quite there yet, but as I think, you know, the annexation project and the municipal development plan project, those dollars are probably getting close to going away. And at that time, we'll have to kind of reassess what our needs are.
Are there any new skill sets in the planning and development process that are on the horizon that we don't have? Like somebody that would be able to be trained to or adapt to, or is there anything like that that's coming downstream or upstream?
You know, not that I'm aware of. I think there's a lot of legislated steps, which is kind of basic. We have continually over the past number of years seen a lot more interest in how we engage the community. And the city does have the Cultivate the Conversation page now, which is a good use of technology to kind of maybe facilitate a little bit more normal relations with the community and to provide a kind of a clearinghouse for more significant projects. So that's been beneficial. But, you know, I don't know that there's anything that really stands out. We have a really good group of people in all of the branches that are really well versed in all of the industry trends and are generally keeping up with everything. And we try to do a lot of training and development if we can or when we can to make sure that we're kind of in touch with our industry as it continues to change and adapt to different conditions.
All right, good answer. Thanks. I appreciate it.
And I guess my comment, Adrian, is that, you know, I hear repeatedly how great it is working with your department. And so I'd like to extend my thanks for that. The feedback on the MDP engagement too was just that really your team knocked it out of the park. So it's really appreciated. So I don't have any questions, but really appreciate those things.
Yeah, thank you. The team is really great to work with for sure, and they do a lot of heavy lifting. So it's much appreciated.
Anything else? We're good. That's all we have. So Councillor Killick, you want to make this one?
Yes, I'll make the motion. So that the Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee recommend to council that the Planning and Development Department 2021 year-end report provided as an attachment to the May 9th, 2022 agenda report entitled Planning and Development 2021 Annual Report be received as information.
All right, I'll accept that. You want to make a comment? Are you ready?
Yes, I'd just like to say that I would encourage the recognition of the main things that are listed off in the blue bubbles in the first 3 pages of the report. People don't have to read the whole report, but if anybody's interested in the high-level list of accomplishments and successes, it talks about all of the growth in volume of activities that the planning and development department work through. It talks about all of the good things that were in the ASP and planning side of things. And just in the absolute number of permits issued in 2021. So I think that provides an excellent summary for why we're receiving this report so positively as well. Adrian, thank you to your team and doing the lunch and learns. They were very helpful and having that casual kind of conversation. So this is an easy one to vote for.
Thank you. I'll call for the vote. All right, that carries. Thank you so much, Adrian. I see we're going to be sticking around for Regan's presentation on the utility master plan update. Hi, Regan. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you. Let me share the screen here. I just put together a few quick slides. Can everybody see that now?
Looks great.
Okay. So just go through. This is, I guess, an overview of utility master plans. The purpose is to identify the infrastructure needed to support growth, but they're also to identify deficiencies in our existing infrastructure as well as gaps in our existing service levels. And the third major piece is to identify changes in the regulations that we need to respond to. Historically, we've completed our UMPs every 10 years, and we do UMP updates every 5 years in between. The last full UMP revision was started in 2013 and completed in 2014. We delayed the update until 2020 due to the new MDP, and the completion of the UMP update was further delayed to 2022 due to COVID and some other competing priorities. So the report itself was split into two. This is the first time we've tried this. We did water as one report, and the sanitary and stormwater were in the second report. And due to timing, the annexation lands were excluded from the scope of both of those studies. So just an overall, you can see this is the UMP for water. This is some of the RMR that was identified. So a lot of the upgrades that are shown here are fire flow deficiencies that were identified from the water modeling. And then the second, I think, big thing is our PRV program. So a number of PRVs have been slated for removal. And there's some locations identified for new PRVs so that we can separate sort of the high elevation areas from the low elevation areas so that we can keep a consistent pressure and meet the needs of the plumbing code. So those are the two major, sorry, go ahead.
Just for anyone listening, can you translate PRV for us?
Sorry, pressure reducing valve. So
thank you.
Yeah. The growth plan, the water UMP growth plan, there were some significant differences here. We had in the previous utility master plan, there was a south reservoir that was located, I think, somewhere around here, and that's been eliminated. And the storage is still needed, but that storage has been relocated to the north reservoir location. There was in the previous UMP, there was a north reservoir. This is what's envisioned now is a larger north reservoir, which eliminates, there was in the previous UMP, there was a need for obviously a new supply line, as well as transmission main capacity coming all the way through the city. What we're planning here is we have an existing 600 that goes as far as Oakmont. And then with this line going to the north reservoir, we would supply the entirety, I guess, of North St. Albert from this north reservoir and pump station, as opposed to sharing it between the north and south, and then the south would have to pump all the way through the city. So it's a much more efficient plan, and I think we saw that when we did the offsite levy bylaw. Water saw a reduction this year as a result of this change, which was significant. The sanitary UMP, so the RMR plan identified a number of upgrades to some lines. There was, we spoke earlier about Oakmont and Erin Ridge. They're not actually envisioned as part of this because within the sewer UMP, it identified that those trunk mains would be going ahead. So otherwise we would see a large number of deficiencies within Oakmont and Erin Ridge, but that infrastructure, it's assumed as part of this, the UMP, that infrastructure will be in place when it's needed. So a number of other locations, as well as Riverside Lift Station, was identified as needing an upgrade at some point, and that one will be driven by growth. So The sewer UMP, the sanitary growth plan, as I said, it just goes out to the current city boundary. So that's one of the challenges that we have is, and we're planning to do some additional engineering because the next full UMP update is not planned to start until 2023 and then be completed in 2024. And we're seeing growth pressure, particularly in the north, in these Dauphiné lands, as well as in the west with Rohit and Avenir. And the challenge is we need to know, how we're going to service these lands far to the northwest now, so that we have the utility infrastructure oversized through some of these communities that are developing right now. So before Rohit and Avenir develop, we need to know how big those sewer mains need to be in order to service these lands. So we've got a pretty significant gap. There was some engineering done that was part that was part of the annexation, but there's some additional gaps, and we're working through that with the planning group. We've hired a consultant to do some bridge engineering, we're calling it, to get us through to the next full UMP update on the sanitary side. On the stormwater side, there were a number of deficiencies that were identified. Some of them were previously identified in the 2013 UMP, and we're working through these, and a lot of them were identified in that capital plan for RMR for utilities. And similar with the stormwater side, we've got the same challenges with the Rohit lands and Avenir. We've got to know how big the storm infrastructure needs to be coming through. Well, I guess we've got Carrot Creek as well that we're planning to utilize, but we just went out to the current city boundary, and there are some issues that we need to work through, and that bridge engineering that we're going to be doing over the course of the next year here is going to get us through to that. So the next steps, as I said, the draft water UMP influenced the 2022 offsite levy bylaw. So I guess it's not so much a next step as a previous step. Potential RMR projects are continuing to be prioritized with other inputs, and many are moving to the design stage. Also, we're trying to find synergies with other utilities projects, as well as with some transportation projects. That interim engineering study is ongoing for both sanitary and stormwater. We excluded water because we think we're in a pretty good position with water for how we're going to support those annexation lands on the water side. We had some significant gaps on the sanitary and stormwater side. And that full revision of the utility master plan is expected to begin in 2023 with completion, and the bulk of the expenses will be in 2024. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Councilor McKay says it's great. We like that. I agree. You know what? I just want to say that last slide, the third point there, trying to find synergies between utilities and transportation. It's really appreciated by residents, by council to really have those projects working together. Makes it easier for everyone. So really appreciate that.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, through the chair, Regan, the capital charters are all still brought independently forward. Like this presentation is really just about proving the long-term plan, master plan, if you will, for activities. Each one of the items that are identified in it will still come to council in the form of individual project charters. Is that correct?
That's correct, Councillor Killick, and we considered some of these. I would consider them more program charters than project charters because they're ongoing every year, and sometimes they're up, sometimes they're down, and we have line items within, but they're programs. I would say, right, because there's a number of different projects that are identified within those charters. They're big charters. So.
Okay, good, and I would echo the chair's comments. Nothing concerns residents more than seeing a road dug up and then a year or two later it's dug up again to put in a sewer line or something. So excellent to see everything being coordinated and brought together. Just really good. And last comment, I can't really argue with anything in here because the software that generates all the information is called Mike Plus. So I can't.
All right. If there's nothing else, Mayor Herron, can I get you to do this?
Mike Plus.
That's a new one too.
Sure. Okay, so that
I can do it.
Community Growth and Infrastructure Standing Committee recommend to council that the Utility Master Plan Update entitled Water Distribution System Master Plan 2020 Update and dated March 2022 be received as information, and the Utility Master Plan Update entitled Wastewater Collection and Stormwater Management Systems Utilities and dated March 2022 be received as information with the date corrected on page 3.
All right, thank you. Any more comments? Okay,
What is the date correction?
call for the vote. That's carried. And
20.
Mr. LaFleur, I told you there was no way our meeting would end by 2:50. So it appears I'm wrong. Unless
It's a big agenda, but
yeah.
there's not a lot to debate.
Meeting adjourned.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, everyone.
The 30th, March 30th, 2022 instead of March 30th,